Hey, hello, welcome. Friend, in this video, we are going to learn our insert command. So with the help of insert into command, we can insert data into Oracle table. So there are few types of insert we can use while inserting data into table. Even we can insert a single record into table or we can insert multiple record at a time in a particular table. We can use both. So let's begin. So here you can see we have already created XX student TB1 in our previous session. So here you can see this is the syntax to create table. So in this student table we have four columns: ID, roles, name and email. So here if you will see, I will check here. So before going to insert data into table, let me use the select statement. So here if you will see, in this table we don't have any data, and here you can see the sequence of the column in the table. The first column is ID, second is role, third is name and the fourth is email. So now here you can see whenever we are going to insert data into table. So here if you see, we have the first type of insert command is a insert into table name values, and we have to provide all the values for the column, each and every column in a sequence. So here you can see first column is ID, so here we have value for the first column as ID. Second column is role, so here this is the role. Third column is name, this is the name, and the fourth column is email, so this is the email. So once I will insert, the same record will be inserted into table. You can see the one record inserted, and it's taken 0.0038 seconds. So now if I will query the table, you can see the same record inserted into the table. So this is the first way we can insert data into table. There are another way to insert data into table, and you can see, suppose each and every time it's little bit difficult to insert data in a sequential way, right? So even SQL provide a facilities to insert data without any providing the sequence. So there are some requirements, some prerequisites. If we are going to insert data not in the sequence, like in which sequence data like in which sequence table is created, right? We have listed the columns. So then what we need to do is that after the insert into table name, we need to list all the columns for which we have to insert the data, and any in sequence we can use. So right now you can see if we don't provide the column name here we don't have any specific column name. It means that we have to provide data in sequence way. And now if we don't want to provide data in sequence way, we can use the column name. Whatever sequence here we will follow, we need to insert, provide data in that sequence only. So here you can see in our student tb1 we have sequence as ID, role, name and email. Now we are inserting data in the sequence as ID, name, email, role. ID, name, email and role is the last column. So here in the same way, whatever way we mention here, in the same way we need to provide the data. So here you can see the first column I have added mentioned here is ID, this is the value of ID. The second column is name, this is the name. Third column is email, this is the email, and the fourth column is role, so this is the role. So now once you will click here, the same data will be inserted into the table. So you can see one record inserted. Now if I'll go and I will run the select query, you can see these two records inserted into the table. So now we have another way to insert data. So we have another way to insert data. Suppose we don't have email for that any record. And if in this way, using this way, if you will skip email here, suppose here in this way, if I skip here email, right? I don't want to insert email here, right? So suppose this is a simple way. I don't want to insert email, right? Remove the email column. And now if I will go for inserting the data, if I will go for the run the command, it will show us error. Why it is showing this error? It's showing not enough values. So why it's showing not enough values? Because of that we are using simple insert command that insert into this table and providing the values. So as in the first insert statement I told you, so whatever sequence we have for the data, we need to provide data in the sequence only. And if you don't want to provide data in sequence, we need to mention the column name. So here you can see we have the sequence as first column as is to ID, second column as the name, and third column is the roll number. But we didn't provide the email. That's why it's saying that total we have four column in the table, but we are providing three values only. So now we have to provide the column for values for the fourth column. That's the consider as an email. So email is suppose ms dhoni at gmail.com. So now here we provided fourth values also, right? So now if we will run the query, it will again show us error. Oh, sorry. So we, as we provided the values, it will insert the data. So now there is one mistake. If you will see, we provided data in which sequence? The first column as 1002 as role, sorry, ID, second column as name, third column as role, and the fourth column as email. And this is not the sequence of data, sequence of the column. So if I will go and check the data of the table, you can see the data is in wrong sequence. So here you can see the id is true because we provided the id values in sequence, the first values as id, but in second value we provided the name. That's the wrong. The second values is role and the third values is name. So preventing this one, right, we need to provide the column name here. So as we provided the column name here in the query. So now our requirement is to insert data without providing the email. So what we need to do is that we can remove email from here, right? And once we have removed the email, so as we have only three records, so here we have to provide the columns name. The first column is id, second values is name, so I will provide the name, and the third values is role. So I will provide the role here. So now here we are forcing the compiler to understand that the in this student table we want only to insert these three columns only, and the values of these three columns in this sequence, not the actual sequence in which table is created. So this sequence is id, name, and the role. So once we will click here, the same data will be inserted into table. Even we provided the three values only, the data inserted into table, and it didn't show error because we forcefully identified the compiler that we are going to provide only three records. So now if I will go and query the table, you can see the fourth record inserted successfully, and the email column is null because we didn't provide the values here in the email column, right? You can see we didn't provide the value for the email. So suppose if we created here, you can see we created table email as, without any constant. So suppose our email column as not null, it will show that error at the time. So right now our email column doesn't have any constant. It means that the email can contain null values also. So suppose here we let's create one other table. So suppose we created one table here, right? So let me add new one. Here we created this table. So suppose this given the table name as 3, and here in email we added as not null, constant as not null. It means that this column cannot be null. And here if you will see, we use same script to insert data into the table, and the table name is 3, right? So at the time it will show us the error. You can see cannot insert null into this student table dot email. So as this in this table, this tb3, we add a constant like email and not null. It means that email should not be null, and here we, if we are not going to provide the column, it means we are forcing compiler to provide null value for this remain column. So they are the scenarios whenever we are using this insert command, that column should not be as a not null. And another way to insert data into the table is the getting data from different tables. So in this way we can insert multiple records in the table. So here you can see in the insert into, we can only provide insert into using values. We can only insert single record at a time in the table. But if we want to insert multiple records, we can use, for inserting the multiple records, we can use that the select statement in the insert query only. So here for example, if you will see, we have this student2 table, student tb2. If I will query this student table 2, so suppose if I will query this student table 2, we don't have any record, right? But I want to insert record in this table at tb2 by getting all the records from table 1. So here you can see in our table 1 we have multiple records, we have 4 records, right? So here what we can do, we can use the subqueries. Here this is the concept of query. So if I will execute this query, it will return us the data. The same, you can say I provided ID, roles, name, and email from this table. So this table returns all the data, whatever data available in the student table. So suppose I don't want to provide the column which have the email as null, so I can add a validation here. where email is not null. So now if you will see, if I will run this query, it will return us all the data which doesn't have the null in the email column. And now here we use these values, this result of this value subquery into this table. So once I will execute, what it will do, it will insert data into the table, and the data will be coming from this query. So this query is returning this data, and this data will be inserted into this student table. So once I will execute this one, so now here you can see it's showing error because in this T2 TV table, here in this TV table you can see we added the constant as a primary key for the ID, and here in this subquery you can see we have duplicate record. Here we have duplicate record as 002. So we can restrict these values by adding the logic. So here let me add another logic where email is not null, and so mm, suppose we what we can do, we can use name, this one, and name is not equals to, will use this one so that it can restrict that particular data. So here you can see if I will execute this query, this select statement will return data by doing the validation. So here you can see this select statement is returning the data as this one, sorry, is not equals to, then we will use not equals to. This is the not equals to operator. We will create separate videos related to the operations also, don't worry about that. So here you can see this query is returning only these two records and the id is unique, right? And I want to insert these two record in this table in a single time. So what I will do, I will execute this query. So once I will execute the query, you can see the two record inserted where in this table. So once I will query this table, you can see all the two records inserted in this table, S2 and TV2 here we used, and in TV1 we have four records, you can see. And as we have done some validation here, by adding the validation, it means it restricts the data from TV1. All the restricted data is not coming, and the rest of the data is coming and inserted into this TV2. So this is the style, this is the way to insert data into table, the various way I have explained. So if you have any other queries, you can make a comment and you can ask anything if you want. In the description of the video, I will provide you the WhatsApp group link. You can join that WhatsApp group for discussion, or want to ask anything, you can connect with us. Thank you so much for watching.